This is The Writing Life. I'm Stephen W. Long, and so happy to have Courtney Terry back with us. Courtney's been on the show before, and it's a new year and new things happening. And help me out if I get this wrong here. You are the reference supervisor, is that right?
Yes, I am.
Okay, at Mac Library.
Yes.
So, well, welcome. It's so nice to have you.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me back.
Yeah. What's going on? You're kind of in charge of lots of things, and start down the list.
Yes, well, I work a lot with adult programming at the library. And I guess, so our biggest library news works for the whole library, and that is we are expanding our weekend hours by 5 hours.
Okay.
Which is so exciting for us. So we'll be open an hour later on Fridays till 6. We'll get 3 extra hours on, so we'll be opening Saturday mornings.
Really? That's a lot.
Yeah, and it works out kind of perfectly because we'll be opening at 10 on Saturdays, and that's the same time that our Friends of the Library book sale is happening.
Okay, sure.
So that'll be, and so actually this coming Saturday is when it starts. Oh, and on Sundays we're open an hour earlier, so we'll start being open at noon.
Okay. Now the only day you're closed, am I right, is Monday?
Yes.
Okay.
And that Monday, we're closed to the public, but it's actually a staff work day.
Sure.
And it's nice to be able to get things done when the library's quiet.
I'm a little jealous. That's nice.
Little empty, yes.
Go back to the book sale. Is that once a year? Is that every quarter? How do you do that?
Oh, no. So the book sales are run by our amazing Friends of the Library.
Okay.
They happen every other month.
Oh, really?
And
okay.
so, and they're odd numbered months. So
Okay.
they're having one in September. The next one will be November, January.
Sure.
And so on. And that happens the second Saturday. And it's not just books that have been discarded from the library collection either. Anytime we get a donation, and if it's a book that we already have a copy of, it'll
Okay.
go into our book sale. So they have a really amazing selection, a lot of hardcovers, and it's just a lot of fun. And it's a major part of our funding for.
Is it really?
So the Friends of the Library are responsible for our adult programming funding.
Okay.
So a lot of the poetry nights that we do, and the different writing programs, and kind of just pretty much every adult program we have is from the Friends.
Okay.
And their book sale. So
And they must have another source of income, or not?
I'm not. I mean, they do.
That's a lot of books, is what I'm thinking.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, when you go into the Carnegie room of the library, even when there's a program going on,
Yeah.
there's always carts and carts and carts of books that
Okay.
are saved, and there's all the shelves in the Carnegie room. Those are all books for the book sale.
Oh, really?
And
okay.
then they have a secret closet. I've never seen it.
Don't we all?
I know it's there.
Okay.
But yeah, and it's exciting that it's kind of timing with our hours expanding this weekend. So the book sale starts at 10. Although if you're a friend of the library member, you can get in at 9
Holy cow.
a.m. Yeah. But at 9:30 on Saturday, we'll have our a celebration for the expanded hours.
Okay.
And then over the summer, we got a new children's room. Like, our children's room's been completely remodeled.
Well, I was going to ask, I've seen some construction going on. Is that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, in June, and it just everything, like new shelving, new carpets, new walls,
Wow.
new technology areas. It's so amazing. There's a lot more like interactive, like
Okay.
places for kids to have games. It's kind of funny. They have one of the most popular things has been this light table. And there's these magnetic kind of like plastic squares, and the kids can use them to like build things on
Okay.
this light table. But as kids do, like, they get a little overambitious with their block stacking, and they'll create these big towers, and they always come crashing down.
Sure.
And where the tower is in the children's room is kind of right in the stairwell that goes up to the second floor. So occasionally we'll be on the second floor helping a patron with a question at the information desk, and all of a sudden we'll all just hear this like crash.
Yeah.
And then usually like a kid will start laughing, or a parent will say, "That's okay." And it's been really funny to hear. You kind of have to be like, no, it's okay. It's just children playing. It's fun.
To the other, yeah.
Yes.
Somebody who doesn't know what that sound is.
Yes, and it does. But I think that's one of what I like about the library is that you can hear. I mean, we have the silent room. And
Right.
It's a very quiet, peaceful place. But especially in our upstairs in the computer area, kind of where the reference desk is, there's always just so much activity because that's where people come to ask questions. And so having it, the noise of the children's room kind of coming up the stairs from there, it just kind of adds to just the feeling that it's like a very vibrant, bustling place.
Yeah, I like that you said that. That's, I think something can be sterile. And I'm not sure that's conducive either. So you've got kind of a mix there of,
Yes.
it's not white noise, but it's
Right.
it's almost comforting.
Yes, and I mean, I know many people, view the library and we get people sometimes that are like, I thought the library was supposed to be more quiet than
Right.
this. And that's kind of where it comes in that the library, we do have the quiet places for studying and kind
Right.
of the quiet reflection, but it's also, it's becoming
It's
a
vibrant.
community center.
Right, yeah.
And so there's a lot of conversations that are happening and interactions that are
Good.
going on. But although, and I know there's one Sunday a month where we have a native flute circle that hosts their jam sessions in the Carnegie Room.
Okay.
So there's a certain Sunday a month that instead of the opera music we play in the speakers, you hear native flute music. And the first time that we had that program, I was really worried about that the music coming up from the bottom floor because
Okay.
it's right below the silent room. And I had a patron come and say, "Oh, whatever music you were playing today was so soothing," and that.
Perfect.
Yes,
Yeah.
which is, I love that we can accommodate a native flute circle at the
course.
library because
Yeah.
it's just,
Well, this area really should. I
Yes.
mean, we have that population.
yeah, absolutely.
So I want to ask you, we have stuff that we want to cover and we kind of need to cover. But
Yes.
We've got a little time here. So I want to ask, in your job,
Mm-hmm.
with your title, that must have changed over the last 5 years, 10 years, digitally. I mean, so 50 years ago, if I went to your grandmother
Yes.
and said, can you help me with something, she would look in an encyclopedia, I suppose.
Yes.
You look in the computer, I imagine.
We do. Reference service has become, it's a lot more, actually, I think the perfect thing that sums it up is there was a quote by Neil Gaiman, the
Oh, yeah,
author,
I love him.
and it's he says, Google can bring you back 1,000 answers, but a librarian will bring you back the right one.
Yeah, yeah.
It was probably more than 1,000. I'm misquoting that, but it's a lot. And so that's the idea. Our role is not necessarily to know all the information, but to know how to find it
Sure.
and how to get the
You
information.
couldn't know everything.
No, I mean,
Nearly,
I try.
but yeah, right.
I mean, someday I will be a trivia champion, but
Right.
that's neither here nor there.
Yeah.
But
We're not far.
no, so a lot of times it's people who, they don't necessarily know how to navigate, especially
Right.
because so much is online. Like you even think, the Social Security program, we will help
Oh,
people
okay.
with that.
Sure.
Like just logging on and seeing your benefits or getting more information, so, or even applying for a job now requires online applications.
Right.
And so for people who don't feel comfortable using the computer, they can come to us and we can, kind of walk them through it.
Yeah.
And, it helps them kind of search, like do job searching, but it also, we hope, kind of helps them feel more comfortable. So just now they
So
have
it's
those
it's
skills.
it's access to the computer, but it's also the education of how to use the computer.
Yes. Well, and also if somebody comes up and is like, oh, I need some information about, vitamin E.
Right.
And we can go, anybody can go online and look vitamin E, but, librarians we've been trained, and this is another thing it's so important for students to kind of get these skills as well of being able to say, okay, I have a list of these search results. Well, that one looks like it's from naturecuresrs.com, and it's
Right.
it's kind of saying,
So a little critical thinking.
Right, just being able to kind of evaluate the sources
Right.
as you go to know which ones are going to be the most relevant and accurate,
Right.
which, especially in today's information climate
Oh my
is
gosh,
it's very important to be
I
able
don't
to
know that it's different. I mean, you can go back in, the 1800s and there would be bogus advertisements or
Yes.
something. But I think if nothing else, with the technology and the availability of stuff coming at us, there's just more.
Yes.
So, and I'm not to put you on the spot at all, but when you're talking about you were trained, there's a major library science, yes?
Yeah, there is. Yep.
Okay.
They do have programs in the undergraduate. I got my master's degree in library science.
Okay.
But there's as many. I feel like there's as many different types of librarian opportunities as there are like in the. Okay, that's not the medical field. That's way overblown. But that's what it's really. There's just such a wide variety of the types of librarians that you
Sure.
can be. Besides public, academic, school, they have like law librarians.
Of course, I never
They
thought
have
of that.
medical librarians.
Yeah,
You could
right.
even you can be a corporate librarian and work for a corporation.
Okay.
And and doing research for that. Like, it's just crazy to me that it's kind of one of those careers that people kind of think like, oh, you're
Right.
checking out books at the library. And it's like, no, it's such an exciting. That was a total plug for any people
Well,
out
yeah,
there
and-
thinking
and
about
actually,
a career in librarianship.
You taught me something. I once you say it, it's obvious, but I hadn't thought of that. And so you're really that at that point you could be a researcher in a sense. And
Yes, they were hiring the Rock and Roll Museum in Seattle
now there's a job.
was hiring for a librarian.
Yeah.
NPR, they use librarians as fact checker. Well, maybe not librarian, but like there was a job I saw that was as a fact checker
Well, sure.
for NPR,
Yeah.
and that would.
It's almost. I mean, it's another instance of a blurry line,
Yes.
because the definition of a reference librarian really is so broad that it really spills into these other areas.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's yes.
Okay, so one more library question, and then
Yes.
we'll move on to this.
Sure.
There's the computers, and I
Uh-huh.
certainly younger people have access to that and so on. But I would guess that in your facility, maybe the tendency is the older person needing that, or at least needing the instruction. And so, if I'm right, and you can correct me later, but so at the other end of the age spectrum, what is happening digitally with young people
So at the
at the
library.
library?
At the library, we have a lot of kids, teens that come in and they do use the computers.
Okay.
A lot of them do gaming. And it can be, we actually recently moved a set of our internet computers kind of away from the rest of the internet computers, and now those are our teen computers.
Okay.
So that way teens can use those computers, they can play games, they can do kind of whatever they want to do, and it's not as disruptive.
Okay.
Because that's what, there's definitely, these, the kids that come in and play these games, like they all get to kind of know each other,
Some excitement, I suppose.
yeah, and I mean, we see it's just some place for them to be, some place for them to go. And
Well, you could sure do worse than the library.
yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what, and we find a lot of times, a kid that comes in who just wants to game on the computer may eventually get interested in, the teen section's right there.
Right.
And so even if it's like manga is really popular, especially which is the Japanese
Okay.
illustration. Well, it's not just Japanese. It's and those are really popular too. And so
Would this be like? Is that graphic novel?
yeah, they're a type
Okay.
of graphic novel.
Okay,
Yep.
yeah.
But it's specifically it's kind of funny. It's super popular overseas. The books, you read them instead of reading them from left to right, front to back. You actually read them in the way that in the style of Korean or Japanese, or a lot of
From what we would call back to front.
yes.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of excited. Like there was a kid, I helped him find a graphic novel the other day, and he was like, "Oh, what? Like this is the end!" And it was just so cool to be like, "No, this is how it happens." And
Right.
um,
I think when we're sitting in the doctor's office, you'll watch people, and a lot of times we'll flip a magazine backwards.
oh yeah,
That's just an
I
observation.
flip around. I look for pictures.
Whatever. Okay. So you are, or tell me if this is correct. My impression is that you are sort of in charge of lots of these programs.
I do a lot of programming.
Okay, so the first one I want to talk about is the gallery at Ten Oaks.
Yes.
And that is poetry?
So we have the gallery. They're amazing. So we host a
Can we
month.
say their names?
Nancy
And Dan?
and Dan Morrow
Yeah.
are amazing.
Okay.
They are so supportive of the library. So every month, on the first Thursday of every month, we host a poetry night. I will find a preferably local poet to come and do, and usually a poet who's been published, like, because we have so many great poets that
Sure.
just come from the community. But so a published poet will come and do a reading of their work, and then afterwards we open it up to an open mic.
Right.
And that's happening. We do take a break for the summer, so we don't host it in July or August.
Right.
But otherwise, the first Thursday of every month, we'll have a poetry reading. We're having one tomorrow in
Right.
September. Kelly Terwilliger is coming to do a reading. I don't have anybody for October yet, so I'm
Okay.
feeling some pressure there. But then we actually are having a double reading the first Thursday in November with Barbara Drake, who's a very
Oh, I
well-known
love Barbara, yeah.
poet. She has a friend from the coast, I think. Her name is Alice Derry. So Barbara and Alice are going to be doing a double reading.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping for December. I tentatively have Lex Runciman
Oh, good. Okay.
is going to come and do
Yeah.
a reading. So, except for that October, like it's really exciting. We've got a really exciting lineup of poets, and that's what I'm always.
Yeah.
There's always new. There's always more.
You know, this is, I've said this 100 times, but this area, McMinnville, let's say, is the epicenter, is just rife with talent.
Yes.
And there's so many people. And
Yes.
I've a plug for Barbara. Her collection, Driving 100, is really probably my favorite collection of poems.
Oh.
I got the book and I read the first one. I thought, oh, I have to tell Barbara I can relate to this. Well, of course, before I got to email her, I read the second one. Oh, I can relate to this. And just right on down. And it's just, they're so accessible,
Yes.
but so meaningful. And, well, good. All right. There's another event, and I'm going to say this while you tell us about it. It's, you write a poem looking at a
Paintings to
paint-
poems.
Okay.
Yeah. So it
okay.
turns out there's a technical term for that, and
Okay.
it's ekphrastic. Ekphrasis is the.
Okay.
I
I've
could
gotta
maybe
learn that.
spell it.
Yeah.
But basically, it's the idea. It's a very particular term for very particular, which is looking at a piece of art and then writing poetry about that piece of art. And you can do what you interpret as happening in the art piece. You can write
Okay.
a poem about how it makes you feel. You can about the colors, about the like pretty much anything that you could think of that you would want to write in verse or not verse
Okay.
about a particular art piece. And it's so exciting for us because the pieces are there in the gallery. And so what
At Ten Oaks.
at Ten
Yeah,
Oaks,
right.
yes. So they're free to wander. And Ten Oaks has, they do new artists. They circle artists in and out.
Okay.
So there's always, it's never the same.
Yeah.
And they, which they do, I know they do, so the paintings to poems, when people have written a poem, Dan and Nancy will take a printout copy of the poem and they'll put it next to the poem hanging in the
Yes.
gallery.
Yes.
And so when that piece sells, the poem goes with it.
Goes with it.
And there's also been the last paintings to poems we actually had two of the artists were there. So they got to actually talk with the person who had written a poem about one of their pieces,
Okay.
which was just such a cool thing to see. You know, the connection between the artist and the writer, and how, you know, getting a poem based on how someone interpreted your own work
Sure.
of art is
Well,
really cool.
I think it is cool, and I think it's fascinating. But not having seen this, my suspicion is that the poetic interpretation is probably pretty different than the fine artist envisioned.
Yeah, well, and I think that's kind of part of it, because, you know, you as an artist, you can create a piece of art and put it out in the world, and you have your
And
own
it's not yours anymore.
And that's what
Right.
different people will see different things based on their own experiences and thoughts. And
Sure.
you know, I think that's special in its own way. Of it, you know, it can be a surprise sometimes. It's not, you know, I like the idea that you can see something different in your own art just because through someone else's eyes, I
Oh,
guess.
sure. And I think maybe obvious, I think we being anybody, brings something to that piece.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's a written piece, a visual piece, a piece of music, anything.
Yes.
And so we have some baggage, or we have some history, and we bring that along.
Right. And
Yeah.
just, you know, art has that ability to bring up memories, and everyone's memory of
Sure.
there's just,
Because your experience has been different.
yeah, exactly.
And you remember different things.
Yeah.
So both of those now are at the Gallery at 10 Oaks.
Gallery at 10 Oaks.
Okay.
And there's another, so right after on the 20th, right
Yeah.
after on the 21st, not at 10 Oaks. This will actually be on 3rd Street,
Okay.
outside of the Ransom Wine Company and Distillery Tasting Room.
Okay.
They share the building with Pirano and Daughters.
Oh, sure, I know what that is.
We
Yeah.
have some of our regulars from the poetry nights at the Gallery at 10 Oaks will be offering poetry while you wait.
Isn't that something?
Yes, and it's actually, so it's going to be a fundraiser for adult programming like our poetry nights. But
Okay.
basically, it's happening between 4 and 8 on Friday the 21st, which is the third Friday on 3rd Street, which is the art and
Okay.
wine walk that the downtown has
Right.
organized. So you can wander down, go up to Mike Santanay, Lucy
Sure.
Knight, Bob Sennheiser. I think they might be doing it. I hope I haven't cursed them.
Yeah.
And say, like, well, I would like a poem about this. And
Oh, I was going to ask you, how does this translate to a fundraiser?
yes.
Okay.
So, and that's what
You commission a poem.
you commission a poem.
Yeah.
It has to be written in an amount of time. And then they come back and they'll have their own poem written
Oh, great.
personally for them. And then I think, maybe $5 a poem.
Okay.
It's a fundraiser for a library. And you get your
Yeah.
own poem. And that was something, that wasn't a library program. That wasn't anything I had planned. That was something that Mike
Well,
Santanay,
I was going
like
to say,
our
leave
community,
it to Mike and Bob, yeah.
yes, came and said, we want to do something to support adult programming at the library. We're going to do this. Which for me, like, I mean, that's just what it's about. Like, it's connecting with the community and then
Right.
having these wonderful people say, well, we want to give back to you. And
Yeah.
we're going to put poetry, like, involve poetry in it somehow.
Both Mike and Bob, I don't know.
Yes,
They're just fabulous.
yes.
Yeah. And part of this fabulous group. I think
Yes.
we're just really lucky.
That's what, I mean, it's almost hard at these poetry nights because I wish we could, I wish we could feature all of our regulars.
Yeah.
And have them be the featured writer or the featured poet for a night because they are so good.
You were talking about October, needing somebody.
We do need somebody.
Phoebe Newman.
She came in June.
Did she? All right.
Yes. Oh, Phoebe was wonderful.
I want to have her on the show.
Yeah. And then kind of farther away, I'm really hoping, I've put in the request for April, which is National Poetry Month. I'm hoping to get the newest Oregon Poet Laureate,
Oh, my
Kim
goodness.
Stafford,
Really?
to come and do a reading.
Boy,
Yeah.
there's a lineage, huh?
Yeah, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And the Oregon Poet Laureate program is fantastic because it allows these amazing poets like Kim Stafford
Right.
to go, to libraries, to all these different places.
Yeah.
And so that's in the books for spring,
Are
hopefully.
you listening, Caroline? We've got to get to Kim Stafford. All right. Before we get too late here, Library After Dark. Is that you?
That is me. We don't have any planned right now.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
What was it? Or what did...
So it's an occasional program that we host.
Okay.
I should probably plan those for
All right.
our next planning meeting. But it's
You're welcome.
basically, thank you. It's a time where after the library is closed in the evening, we open it back up for people to come in, and then we usually have a literary event. So we've done author talks. We've had
Okay.
lots of author talks.
Okay.
Actually, about just a variety of people.
Okay.
And that's what I don't have any plans currently, but they are a really fun program, and people really love them. So
Okay.
we'll get more soon.
Something I didn't write down, but you reminded me. Working draft writers?
Yep. So that's still going
Okay.
on the Monday.
Okay. And
of
is that
every-
is that
I can't
just,
remember which Monday it's on.
is
Second
that,
Monday?
well, now, would that be on your website?
Yes.
Okay, so
Yeah.
you guys can look it up
Yes.
if you're interested. And just
MacLibrary.org
a quick
calendar.
description of what that is. Working draft writers.
So it's another community-run group that uses the library as kind of its meeting
Okay.
community space. But
Yeah.
it's a group of writers. You can bring copies of anything you're working on.
Okay.
It's a
Do you
critique.
sign up, or, I mean, what I'm wondering is, like, if 10 people have 10 pages, you can't read all that. It's just too
I'm not
much.
sure. I think we'd have to get Caroline in here to talk about it
Okay.
because she's very involved.
Okay, well, we'll do
But
that.
yeah, it happens on a Monday, which is technically we're closed, but
Yeah.
we're still able to host programs.
Sure.
And so it's at 7:00 on the second Monday. I know it's on the 10th this month.
Okay.
I hope
Well,
so.
that would then be, I think, it would be the second Monday.
Yes, yeah, and so
Okay.
that's a monthly program that happens.
Okay. Last one,
Yes,
and if I say this right, NaNoWriMo?
yes, you did.
Okay.
National Novel Writing Month, which
Okay.
is so the month of November. Their writers are challenged to try and write 50,000 words or like a novel within the month of November.
Okay.
And there are
So do the math on that. If it's
Yeah.
50,000
I have
words and
not.
divided by 30,
Yep.
yeah.
I can't do the math, but so that's kind of part of it. Like you have to have this discipline and just this
1,500 words.
commitment.
Yeah.
It's a lot. And so there's also these great writing groups and communities that have kind of sprung up about like how to.
Okay. Now, this is a national thing,
Yes.
I think. Is
Yep,
that right?
Yep. And then there's regional groups for every area.
Okay.
And so the library, as part of that, we are hosting a kind of kickoff to NaNoWriMo, and we have Maggie Stuckey, who is
Okay.
she's a Portland author. She writes a lot of nonfiction, and she'll be here talking specifically about publishing, getting your nonfiction book published,
Okay.
which I think, I hear a lot at the library, people who are interested in writing kind
Sure.
of more nonfiction, and so this year. that's our
Commercially, that's easier to get published, for whatever that's worth.
Yeah, that makes sense too.
Yeah.
And so that's happening on August 27th. It's a Saturday at 2 p.m. And
I'm sorry, say it again. What's the date?
August 27th, nope, October.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. I thought,
I don't know what
we're
month
on-
it is.
We're on a
It's-
time delay
that's
here.
normal.
Till October 22nd.
Yes, and Maggie Stuckey has come quite a few times. She wrote a book about Soup Night, which is like creating a community.
Boy, that's familiar,
meal.
yeah.
And
Maybe I
then-
read it on your...
Yes, she does a lot of gardening books, like about container gardening and
Okay.
stuff. They're just perfect. Like they're the kind of books you can pick up and it spells it all out for you, and it's really
Very
and
clear.
that's what
Yeah.
and she's a prolific nonfiction writer, and she's also a wonderful library supporter. So
Great.
she'll be here in October.
I'm in a writing group,
Mm-hmm.
and we have two people writing memoirs. And in fact, a fellow who's previously left the group was writing a memoir.
Mm-hmm.
And I just, I don't think you do it for commercial success. I think you do it, it's cathartic.
Mm-hmm.
I think you want to leave something maybe for your kids or
Mm-hmm.
something. And it's just fun to read, in a sense, depending on the person's age, how things used to be.
Yes.
You know, maybe we sort of know some of that, but just I know him or her, and this is how they churn butter, or
Right.
whatever
Well, and
it
a
is.
lot of times it's not these big historical events that everybody remembers. It's like, no, this is what daily mundane life was like.
Right.
during these times.
Yeah. Terry, thank you. Terry. Courtney,
It happens. It's okay.
the girl with two first names.
Yes,
that's the
I know.
problem.
It's a
Forgot.
struggle I face daily.
I'm sorry.
It's okay.
All right. With that embarrassment, we're going to wrap it up. I'm Stephen W. Long. This is The Writing Life. Come back. I'll try to get it straight next time.
Yes, absolutely.
And you come back too.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks. Bye-bye.
What do you think? We done?
I don't know, you guys wanna do one just
Yeah, I
with
think
yourself
as
without
long
me
as
doing
they
the
think we're
bongos?
done, if
No,
they got
no.
enough, they got enough.
They got enough? Problem? Okay, sounds good.
Let's go lunch. I'm
Oh.
hungry.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can just bite too.